The most important part of being a member of Congress to me is serving you. It's ensuring that constituents, we the people, those that have given me the opportunity to represent in Washington, D.C., are able to make their opinions and their perspectives known and have them represented here in the capital of our nation. With that in mind, let me throw some numbers at all of you. 190, 467, 1,908, 139,674. 190 hours. My team and I held 190 satellite office hours and attended 467 events throughout the community. We answered 139,674 phone calls, emails, and letters about the issues before Congress and the issues facing Florida's 21st Congressional District. And I just want to say thank you to each and every one of you who has written in. We're blessed to live in a representative democracy, but it doesn't work unless you make your voice heard, and our community makes their voice heard. On top of those calls, we helped 1,908 people who were stuck in the red tape of the federal government that's supposed to be helping you, but actually they're getting in your way. Whether it was a veteran who couldn't get a copy of their records or their DD-214, or someone whose business was having trouble with the IRS, the most frequent call that I got is to help somebody with federal agencies. This year, there was one agency that we got more calls about than any other, and that was the Department of State.
On average, passport wait times are somewhere around 3 to 4 months, and that is a number that is increasing from what I understand. Visa wait times are even worse in many cases. Certain posts, it's not taking weeks or even months, it is taking years. I've dealt with this personally myself. State needs to make sure that it's doing the basic functions at the highest possible levels. Americans are frustrated. We owe them answers. We do not owe them excuses.
The State Department made a lot of headlines this year for the systemic issues in the Passport Services Division, resulting in major backlogs and canceled plans for Americans across the country. The Treasure Coast and the Palm Beaches certainly weren't immune to those issues. 647 Floridians called because of a passport problem. That's why I introduced and passed legislation to help deal with those systemic issues and reform the passport process. There's no silver bullet, but I'm hopeful that this time next year, the number of folks who need help with their passport because the State Department has delayed it will be way, way down. But no matter what issue you're having when it comes to the federal government, I hope that you know that you can always give my office a call, and we will do everything in our power to help each and every one of you. Does not matter if you're a Republican, a Democrat, an independent, a non-voter, a young person, a senior, male, female, it does not matter. We will do everything that we can to help every single one of you. Now, if there's one fight that I have day in and day out, it's the fight to keep our water clean. This year was no exception to that. The biggest battle of the year was over the implementation of the Lake Okeechobee System Operating Manual, or as we always call it, LOSOM. Now, LOSOM is the new plan for how the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers manages the discharges out of Lake Okeechobee into the coastal estuaries. They wrote that after I passed a law requiring them to do so back in 2018. This has been a 5-year process, and we are about to cross the finish line. LOSOM should have been implemented in June of 2023, but at the last possible second, another federal agency with the bureaucracy that they bring with them, the National Marine Fisheries Service, hit the pause button on all of the progress that was taking place.
In your comments, you noted in the very beginning when you received an invitation to the project delivery team that basically you weren't going to participate until the very end. I consider that to not be an appropriate way for an agency to operate. It's essentially what your letter says here. Is, to your knowledge, is NMFS looking to make changes to the Lake Okeechobee System Operating Manual as has been put forward to this point and agreed upon by basically everybody?
At the moment, Congressman, we have not yet concluded our analysis. We still have a month to go on that. We're working through that to decide whether or not we would either find that the Corps' actions are not likely to jeopardize the continued existence of the species, or if it is likely, what reasonable and prudent measures we would come, a reasonable prudent alternative we would come out with that would allow them to carry forward their actions and still preserve the species.
NMFS, or NIMFS as we call it, they raise concerns about the potential impact the new plan would have on sea turtles on Florida's west coast. Now, as a result, we're still waiting on the results of the biological impact study, and LOSIM has been seriously delayed right up until this very moment. The hope is that LOSIM will be in place early next year so that our community won't have to suffer through yet another rainy season, summer season, hurricane season under the outdated system. But despite that setback, we still made some real progress this year. The Army Corps of Engineers implemented a requirement that I passed into law last year that all Army Corps of Engineer personnel, whether uniformed or civilians, who are working at the Port Mayaka Lock and Dam and exposed to toxic algae blooms for hours every day as they're out there working around it, have to have a note placed in their file denoting their exposure to harmful toxins, so when they retire from the military some years down the road and they have serious medical conditions, they're not having to try and prove what actually happened to them because of the hours they spent working on these toxins. It will be in their file. So I asked about how this new requirement was actually working.
Give us an idea of what would that look like, a dosimeter would look like for somebody that had radiological exposure where it's added up over time, or would it be a letter for each day that somebody is exposed and it says, hey, you worked 8 hours today or 10 hours today, and it gives us an idea of what that would look like, what it actually will look like in practice.
Right now, I believe it's going to look like a letter that goes in their file that documents that. But we're developing this as we go, and I'm sure we'll have some things to learn.
This was a win that protects the people who work closest to Lake Okeechobee, but there is still more to do, which is why I also introduced legislation like the Toxic Health Warning Act, which would require the Army Corps of Engineers to notify the public before discharging toxic water into any area. Our goal is no discharges, period. But until then, the bare minimum the Army Corps can do is make sure that people know about the danger that they may face because of the water the Corps is discharging into their community. Florida's water is one of the greatest parts of our community. We love to have fun on it and swim in it and boat on it and fish in it and live on it. And it's why we'll fight every day to make sure that we protect it.
So this year I took on a new role with the House Foreign Affairs Committee, chairman of the subcommittee on oversight and accountability.
With this new position, I've been fighting against President Biden and Antony Blinken's disastrous foreign policy. It's been destroying America, and that means pushing back against far-left influence and the liberal agenda within the administration, and ensuring that the State Department officials are focusing on serving America's interests, not Mexico or Guatemala or Ukraine or anybody else's interests other than America first.
Who are the ones that directly answer to you, so we can know a little bit about your office, and then we'll give this chart to somebody in your office and maybe they can fill out the rest of the names while you're here answering questions for us. It'd be very helpful.
Mr. Chairman, let me just say to you,
deputy,
Mr. Chairman, I'm not going to fill them in here.
You're not going to tell us who's
I'm not
working
going to
in your
go
office.
through them by name because that is not the required process of the State Department.
The Oversight and Accountability Subcommittee has also been focused on the enforcement of sanctions and ensuring that American technology does not fall into the hands of our adversaries.
The Chinese Communist Party is using American technology to build more precise, more lethal weapons to sink our carriers and to kill our troops. That is Xi Jinping's plan. If Xi Jinping is gearing up for a fight, Joe Biden, in my opinion, is doing the opposite of that. He's desperate to appease the enemy, even if it means giving away our own military's advantage.
On top of that, I also passed a bill called the Underseas Cable Control Act, which would prevent China from increasing their control of a crucial telecommunications technology that supports more than $10 trillion of American financial transactions every single day.
I have introduced the Undersea Cable Control Act. It is a bipartisan bill that will direct the president to develop a strategy blocking our adversaries' ability to develop and perfect undersea cable capabilities. It's a critical step for our security. Everything with China, everything with communists is competition. It's competition against America. It's competition against our democratic values, our way of life, the way that we operate, the way that we pride ourselves on freedom. And I don't kick well, but I'm prepared to kick their ass in anything
The House passed this bill with a huge bipartisan vote, and now we'll be pushing the Senate to take it up and send it straight to President Biden's desk. President Biden has refused to demonstrate peace through strength, and it's emboldened our adversaries and endangered our allies and the United States of America. That became perfectly clear on October 7th when Hamas launched a despicable, subhuman terrorist attack against our ally Israel. Since then, the House Foreign Affairs Committee has been committed to ensuring Israel has the tools that it needs to destroy Hamas and all of their enablers, including passing my bill, the Hamas International Financing Prevention Act, which cuts off groups or individuals who offer financial material or technical support to Hamas to help them conduct their terrorism. As we begin the new year, we have to continue to stand with our ally, even as the mainstream media buys into Hamas propaganda and tries to cast Israel as some kind of villain.
Continue to watch people think it's okay to bomb a hospital.
Larissa, what do we know for sure about this hospital strike?
We've been hearing from Palestinian authorities 200 to 300 killed, but Hamas is now saying they believe 500 people were killed.
יש לך את ההזדמנות לראות את המפנה של הבית חולים מצד שמאל.
The Wall Street Journal coming out with a new analysis on last week's deadly Gaza hospital blast. After reviewing footage from the area and consulting with experts, the Journal says the blast likely came from a failed rocket that was actually targeting Israel.
I can promise you that I'll continue to speak the truth, even if Democrats try to censure me for it.
Now, therefore, be it resolved that Brian Mast be censured.
Because until every last Hamas terrorist is wiped from the face of the earth, they will continue to try and destroy Israel and the values that we both share. Democracy, freedom, mutual respect for all people. On the battlefield, I fought for our nation's safety, and as a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee and chairman of the Oversight and Accountability Subcommittee, I continue that fight every single day. When I was sworn into Congress, one of the first things that I did was to ensure that I had a spot on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee because it puts me in the best position, best possible place to advocate for the issues that matter to our community as a day-to-day way of life. That includes the expansion of the Brightline train and its impact on our community, particularly as it relates to the St. Lucie River Railroad Bridge. At every possible opportunity, I've been working to keep it from disrupting the Treasure Coast way of life.
This was a claim made by Brightline or Florida East Coast Rail that basically they had no knowledge when talking about this waterway, this bridge, these trains that the chairman brought up, that a temporary deviation to how this bridge would operate, local automobile traffic, local maritime traffic, freight rail and passenger rail, how that would all be affected. They didn't have an opportunity to weigh in on how that would all be affected by in ensuring that waterway has the right-of-way, which is the law. So my question is, did everybody have an opportunity to weigh in on that proposed deviation, this rulemaking process?
Congressman, we've tried to be as transparent as possible with respect to the St. Lucie Bridge. I think it was in May of last year. I may have the dates a little bit off, but we issued a notice of inquiry because we were considering what changes needed to be made to the bridge schedule to ensure the reasonable needs of navigation, as well as balance the interest of all the stakeholders involved.
It's been clear from the beginning that the only real solution for marrying that relationship between rail and the maritime industry is a new bridge. If we replace the current 90-year-old single-track bridge, it can be built taller and wider, and rail, motor, marine traffic will all be able to coexist and keep everybody moving at the same time. That's why I advocated for a grant to build a new bridge, and we were successful with that. The city of Stuart will be receiving $130.5 million from the Department of Transportation to invest in replacing the new railroad bridge. And now we're one step closer to making sure that the Treasure Coast continues to thrive and not be disrupted. But Brightline isn't the only issue that I focused on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. Nationwide, we're still struggling with a broken supply chain, which is why I sponsored legislation to cut red tape and get more drivers on the road. The CABS Act is a simple solution that would help get more qualified drivers moving goods from A to B in big rigs Now, due to an oversight in current law, picking up goods from a port, like the Port of Palm Beach, is interpreted as interstate transportation, even if the final destination is within the state. So imagine if something came out of the Port of Palm Beach and it's still going somewhere in Palm Beach County, or Martin County, or St. Lucie County. That is considered interstate transport, and therefore all drivers have to be over 21 years old to pick up cargo coming off of the ships. That means a 20-year-old with a commercial driver's license could not pick up a shipment at the Port of Palm Beach and deliver it to a destination in Stewart. But that same driver could transport cargo from Tallahassee all the way to Miami if they wanted to.
Is preventing drivers that are 21 years old from moving interstate commerce, is that age discrimination? In my opinion, it is.
I don't view it that way because the age requirements we have, in the same way that we have age requirements around getting a regular driver's license, are informed by safety data about the likelihood of fatalities. Now, as you know, we got a pilot.
You get a driver's license at 16 or so, depending on the state you're in, right? So.
Yeah, but I don't know why that's not age discrimination and 21 for a truck is.
You're not an adult at that point. At 18, you're an adult.
Sure, and at 22, you still can't rent a car in most places. The kinds of
22, you can't what?
Can't always rent a car.
Rent a car.
Right.
Well, we could argue whether that's age discrimination as well. Again, my personal opinion, and I'll wrap it up, it's age discrimination. I hope that the administration can look at it and review it in that way in part.
This policy doesn't make sense. It's one of the simple things that we work to fix to help get things better from A to B and make things more affordable for every person in our community. Hey everyone, thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed the video, please click like and subscribe. I will be back on YouTube with more exclusive content, so stay tuned.